Hello, hello, this is Joseph Pondu again, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. I've been asked, I probably could say quite a few times, about my thoughts on, the amazing knowledge people, not only the religious, but even the lay people, seem to have these days about the the biblical chapters, verses, the Bible itself in general. They seem to be able to quote so well, without any references. I mean, without referring to any paper or something, they are able to talk about it so well. And that seems amazing. That seems very impressive. So, I've been asked in the past, what are your views? And of course, in general, it's something wonderful. If somebody knows the Bible inside out, where they can talk about it in their sleep, where they can quote verses and chapters, without the need to turn pages or turn to the internet, that's amazing, that's wonderful. But really, the question remains, does that necessarily make them a better Catholic? Or more importantly, if you do not know, to quote the Bible as well, if you're not familiar with the chapter and verses, does that make you any less of a Catholic or any less favorable in the eyes of God? Personally, if you ask me, no. I cannot quote verses and chapters. I am fairly familiar with a great extent, of the Bible, which comes purely from having attended Mass, year on year on year, especially my school and college days, almost every day, where I had the chance living in small towns to, serve the Mass and do the epistle reading, sometimes maybe even 7 days a week, yeah. So that, yes, gives me a little bit of knowledge about the content part of it. I could recite a few verses here and there, but if you ask me to cite those verses, to quote the chapter and verse number and all, no, that's not my forte. My knowledge is not to that extent. Yeah? So for the pros and cons, like I said, of course, it's fantastic. If somebody knows that, salutes and respects, that's amazing. But I must say that, all the while I was growing up, we had amazing priests in our parishes, and I do not recall any of those priests, saying these chapters and verses, every now and then, as they were preaching or talking, or even conducting the retreats and so on. And I do believe that they were very good priests too. My parents, we have sat together, we have prayed numerous times, and I really doubt if they were in a position to quote the passages, the chapters, the verses, the numbers, and so on. But I dare say that they were very good, amazing, phenomenal Catholics and people, But of late, we find a lot of, people among the Catholics too. I hear a lot of Protestants who claim they have become authorities, over a couple of, I don't know, hours or weeks or months or whatever it is, to be able to go and, preach with all those citings and quotings and so on. But among the Catholic folk as well, I hear this being done pretty often. Who am I to say what is right, what is wrong? Naturally, the religious, the priests, the nuns, they know better. If they do that, That's their call. That's fantastic. But from my perspective, for me, it's a bit of a distraction. Because when I see a priest, for example, during a sermon, saying, John chapter this, verse this, I find a lot of people immediately taking the Bible and going through that, turning to that page. Or even pulling out their mobile phones nowadays and going to the internet and playing on that. And for me, it makes no difference whether they're searching for a biblical verse or they are playing on their WhatsApp or Facebook. The distraction is the same. In retreats, however, yes, I find that when the priests are talking, then they like to refer to the chapters and verses, that they're talking about, so that people can go back at leisure and read them again and again and recollect them. Still, if I was the person in their place, I would probably give a handout after the particular session, or make a large board and put it on the side of the venue so that, after the session they can go and take a photo of that or note it down or whatever it is, so that there's no distraction during the talk itself. Because trust me, when somebody goes through that or starts writing about it, there is a part of the actual talk that you're going to miss over there, But like I said, if that is the way they will do, who am I to say that something is right or wrong? I've sat with a few nuns, who they just flow out. And like I said, for me, it's very, very impressive. What I wouldn't even say bothers me. I would say what I find strange and funny is that people take it to great lengths, probably beyond what is required. And this is true, I was in a prayer meeting once, and here was somebody who came to give the message. And during that, he quoted the Bible maybe 20 times in a talk of about 30 minutes. And it was to an extent where, apart from, again, the risk of repeating myself, naturally it's very impressive. I'm happy for him. God bless him. That's fine. But he also turned around saying, Lord Jesus, as you have said in the Bible, in Matthew chapter 18, verse 20, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, So according to your promise, according to what you have said in the Bible, please bless us abundantly and all that. But that is taking it a bit too far. If the Bible is definitely, the Word of God, that's perfectly fine. But my friend, the chapters, the verses, the pages and all are very much human. They're very much man-made. They're just done that for organizing that, in a certain manner so that it can be easy for us to assimilate, right? So, but if your understanding of that is to an extent that you need to remind God, that you need to remind Jesus Christ about what he said by referring to the chapter and verse in the Bible, I think you're losing the core. And that's exactly the point. It's very good to know the chapters and the verses in the Bible, but if you are focusing on that, giving that so much of importance that you lose out on the core message in the verse, then everything is lost. I hope I'm clear on that. By all means, go and, familiarize yourself, by heart it if you can, to whatever extent you can. And the danger also is that unless you are a very, very ardent, researcher, a scholar, a wannabe scholar, with proper guidance. You see, when the priests read the Bible during their seminary days, I'm sure they do it with guidance. They have discussions among themselves. They have their peers to go to, their professors to go to, and so on and so forth. However, as I said, little knowledge is dangerous knowledge, and why do I say that? Because oftentimes when you take a certain verse from the Bible, it's not a standalone, when you sit with somebody who's really researched and who's really a scholar in the subject, or a priest who's very well familiar with that verse, he will tell you, hold on, what you say is correct. However, you need to read this passage, you need to read this verse in conjunction with chapter X, verse Y said earlier, and or chapter X, chapter Y said later, to the extent that something in the New Testament could also be related to something that was said in the Old Testament, right? So if somebody is going to have a half-baked knowledge and takes that as the ultimate knowledge and sort of goes about giving that message, that could be not the right approach. That's my only thing. But beyond that, what I would like to say is the Word of God, the Bible, is extremely important. It's extremely vital. It's very a greater thing for you to live a great life and enter the kingdom of heaven, no doubt about it. But remember, the Bible and the verses therein is like a sea of water. The sea is abundant with water, right? Abundant with water. There's so much of water over there, right? It's so powerful, the water in the sea. But all that water is no use to you unless it is processed. It's processed in a way that it becomes potable, that it becomes water that you can drink. Otherwise, for somebody who's thirsting, the whole sea of water is of no use. The Bible and the words of God are also of the same nature. How much you know the verses, how many times you've read it, is really not the important point in that. How do you assimilate it? How do you understand it in the right sense? How do you apply it in your own life? How do you live your life based on what is said in the Bible, in the verses, in the scriptures? That is what really matters, right? I know chapter, verse of every single book, or I don't know, doesn't really make the difference, right? As long as I can take those words, process them, right? Take them into my life, meditate on them, think on them, more often than not with somebody's help. Somebody, like your parish priest, for example, okay, or somebody whom is a real scholar on the matter, so that you don't get misguided. And I really mean it in the right sense. When I was growing up, there was a time when probably I was in college, when everybody in my town used to talk about Karl Marx, Das Kapital. And trust me, that included me as well, yeah, because it sounded so, so great. I mean, it was like a show-off stuff. But trust me, most of us did not know anything more than these two words, So it's not about that. It's not about showing off that we know a little bit about that. It's about really taking them in, understanding them, and more important than anything, applying that in your life. And do you have to apply everything that is said in the Bible to be a good Catholic? My personal view would be no. You take a handful of points. Just a couple of, the commandments, for example, anything that really touches you over there, and try to apply that in your life and, grow on that spiritually, and you will find yourself an amazingly different person, and much more closer to God. So do not worry if you do not know the, chapters and verses of all the books or even one of the books. I do not, and thousands of people around us who do not know, and yet they're very, very good people, right? I mean, it's not necessary that we are good Catholics or good people only if we know that. It does not say that we have failed in our duty as a Catholic if we do not memorize each line, each page over there, right, with the right chapters and verses. Those who know, well and good, fantastic, but that's not the end of the world. There's so much more to that. Let's learn to live the Word of God, and I think that's much more important. You take care, my friend. You have a great day.